On the north bank of the River Thames, there stands a fortress that has witnessed 1,000 years of British history, the Tower of London. To tourists, it's a magnificent medieval castle, home to the crown jewels, protected by the famous Yeoman Warders, the beef eaters. But to those who work there, who walk its corridors after dark, who stand guard in the quiet hours before dawn, it's something else entirely. This is a place where queens were beheaded, where princes were murdered, where torture was not just permitted, but perfected, where the screams of the condemned echoed off stone walls for centuries. And, according to countless witnesses, guards, tourists, historians, even members of the royal family, those screams never really stopped. Anne Boleyn walks headless through the chapel where she's buried. Two small boys, hand in hand, drift through rooms where they were likely smothered to death. A phantom bear terrifies sentries. A white lady smells of heavy perfume. And in the dead of night, processions of long-dead nobles march through locked rooms. This is not folklore. This is not legend passed down through generations. These are documented sightings, testified to under oath, witnessed by dozens of credible people, some as recently as this decade. Welcome to the Tower of London, the most haunted fortress in England. To understand why the Tower of London is so profoundly haunted, you need to understand what happened within its walls. The tower was built in 1066 by William the Conqueror, the Norman king who invaded England and changed British history forever. Built by William the Conqueror in the 11th century to defend and secure his status as King of England, the Tower of London became not only a magnificent fortress, but a royal palace too. At its heart stands the White Tower, a massive Norman keep of pale stone that still dominates the skyline today. For nearly 1,000 years, the tower served multiple purposes: royal residence, armory, treasury, and, most infamously, prison. But not just any prison. This was where England sent those accused of treason, nobles, royals, anyone who threatened the crown. And treason carried one punishment: death. The executions were usually public spectacles on Tower Hill, just outside the walls, where thousands would gather to watch the condemned meet their fate. But for those of the highest rank, particularly royal women, there was a different fate. Tower Green is one of the most chilling sights in the Tower walls, where royals and nobles, including Anne Boleyn and Catherine Howard, were executed. Tower Green, a small patch of grass overlooked by the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula, St. Peter in chains. Here, away from the jeering crowds, England's queens were beheaded. 3 queens of England died on Tower Green. Anne Boleyn, second wife of Henry VIII, executed in 1536. Catherine Howard, fifth wife of Henry VIII, executed in 1542. Lady Jane Grey, the 9 Days Queen, executed in 1554 at just 16 years old. All 3 were young women. All 3 were accused of crimes they likely didn't commit. All 3 met the executioner's axe in that quiet corner of the fortress. But their deaths weren't always quick. Margaret Pole was 67 at the time of her death. Eyewitnesses say the executioner on that fateful day in 1541 was a wretched and blundering youth who, unable to perform a clean execution with his axe, instead hacked at Margaret Pole's head and shoulders. Is it any wonder that such violent deaths left echoes? Is it any wonder that those who died here, their lives cut brutally short, their final moments filled with terror and injustice, might refuse to leave? If there's one ghost that defines the Tower of London, it's Anne Boleyn. She was the woman who changed England. Henry VIII broke with the Catholic Church, created the Church of England, and defied the Pope himself, all to marry her. For 3 years, she was queen. She gave Henry a daughter, the future Queen Elizabeth I, one of England's greatest monarchs. But she didn't give him a son. And Henry, now convinced their marriage was cursed, found a solution: accuse Anne of adultery, treason, and even incest with her own brother. The charges were almost certainly false, but in Tudor England, the king's word was law. On May 2, 1536, Anne Boleyn was brought by barge along the Thames, through Traitor's Gate, and imprisoned in the same royal apartments where she'd prepared for her coronation just 3 years earlier. Anne was beheaded on Tower Green and laid to rest in the Chapel Royal of St. Peter ad Vincula, St. Peter in Chains, the parish church of the Tower of London. On May 19, 1536, she was led to the scaffold on Tower Green. She knelt. The French swordsman Henry had specially imported for a cleaner execution raised his blade. With one stroke, it was over. Anne Boleyn, Queen of England, was dead at 35. Her body was placed in an arrow chest, not even a proper coffin, and buried hastily beneath the floor of St. Peter ad Vincula. But that was not the end of Anne Boleyn. Some 340 years later, a soldier reported seeing a light burning in the closed chapel. After climbing to a window to look within, the soldier is said to have seen a procession of knights and ladies led by a headless Anne Boleyn. The captain of the guard climbed a ladder and pressed his face against the window. Inside the locked, empty chapel, he saw something impossible. A stately procession of knights and ladies attired in ancient costumes, and in front walked an elegant female whose face was averted from him, but whose figure greatly resembled the one he had seen in reputed portraits of Anne Boleyn. The procession paced the length of the chapel, then simply vanished. But that's just one sighting. One of the more famous sightings was back in 1864 by military man General Dundas, who saw Anne Boleyn in the form of a ghostly white figure. She was moving towards a guard, feet not touching the floor, in the courtyard where she was kept prisoner. The guard, thinking that she was real, charged at her with his bayonet to ward her off, but of course this was to no avail, and he ended up charging straight through her ghost. Realizing that he'd seen a ghost, the guard promptly fainted. The soldier was nearly court-martialed for being asleep on duty, but 2 other witnesses, watching from the bloody tower, corroborated his story. This strange tale was apparently confirmed by 2 witnesses who had watched the incident from a window in the bloody tower. The rifleman was acquitted. She's most often seen near the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula, where she was hastily buried after her beheading. Some say her spectral figure has been spotted gliding through the chapel, while others claim to have heard the sound of weeping from within its walls late at night. Anne Boleyn's ghost has been seen so frequently at the tower that the Yeoman Warders, the tower's official guards, no longer even question it.
One modern beefeater reported he swore he saw a flickering light moving through the chapel, only to find nothing there when he went to investigate. The most heartbreaking detail? Witnesses describe her as walking silently, occasionally seen holding her head under her arm, creating a chilling sight for those who encounter her. These appearances often come with a sudden chill, adding a tangible feel to her presence. Forever carrying the head that was severed from her body, forever wandering the place where her life was stolen.
But Anne Boleyn isn't the only royal ghost haunting the tower. There's another story, one even darker, one that involves not betrayal or adultery accusations, but the cold-blooded murder of children. In 1483, England was in chaos. King Edward IV had just died, leaving behind two young sons, Edward V, age 12, and Richard, Duke of York, age 9. Their uncle, Richard, Duke of Gloucester, was named Lord Protector, responsible for guiding young Edward V to his coronation. Instead, Richard did something else. Aged 12 and 9 years old, respectively, they were lodged in the Tower of London by their paternal uncle and England's regent, Richard, Duke of Gloucester, in preparation for Edward V's forthcoming coronation. At first, this seemed normal. The tower was a royal palace. Kings traditionally stayed there before coronations. It is assumed that there have been several plots to free the princes in the tower and crown Edward. But then, Parliament declared the boys illegitimate. Their uncle crowned himself King Richard III, and the boys disappeared. As the summer went by, the two boys were seen less and less. The last mention of a sighting of the boys is from 16 June in the Great Chronicle. It said that the children were seen shooting arrows and playing in the garden of the tower several times. After that, nothing. What became of these young boys remains a mystery. They were never seen alive again. In 1674, workmen at the Tower of London excavated from under a staircase a wooden box containing two small human skeletons. The discovery of the bones near a staircase seemed to comply with Sir Thomas More's The History of Richard III, 1513 to 1518, which famously accused Richard III of murdering the princes, his nephews. More recorded that the boys were buried inside the tower at the stairfoot, meetly deep in the ground under a great heap of stones. King Charles II had the bones moved to Westminster Abbey, where they remain today in a marble urn designed by Christopher Wren. But here's where it gets complicated. Experts and researchers in 1933 stated that the bones and teeth of the skeletons belonged to children of the same ages the princes would have been, but it was not even determined whether the bones were male or female. Were they really the princes, or just two other children who died in the tower? We may never know. The British Crown has refused all requests to DNA test the bones. But at the tower itself, witnesses have no doubt. The shadowy figures of two lost little boys holding hands are a relatively common sight in the White Tower as they drift between rooms and melt into the walls. Guards have reported seeing them late at night, two small figures in old-fashioned nightgowns, always together, always holding hands. Sometimes they're just standing there, watching. Sometimes they're playing, laughing, oblivious to the centuries that have passed. Imprisoned in the Bloody Tower in 1483 by their uncle, Richard III, they mysteriously vanished, never to be seen alive again. And then, without warning, they fade. They melt into the stone walls. They vanish as completely as they did in 1483.
And if you hear the sound of children laughing when no one's around, perhaps it's just echoes, or perhaps two little boys, murdered nearly 550 years ago, are still playing in the only home they remember.
Anne Boleyn and the princes are the most famous, but they're far from the only spirits reported at the tower. The White Lady. It's said that the ghost of the White Woman stalks the tower. Some visitors smell her heavy perfume and feel a chill in the air. She's been seen for centuries, always dressed in white, always carrying the scent of strong perfume. No one knows who she was in life. Lady Jane Grey. Lady Jane Grey became queen after the death of King Edward VI, son of King Henry VIII. She's known as the English queen with the shortest reign, a mere 9 days. She was 16 years old when she was executed on Tower Green in 1554, a pawn in political games she never chose to play. Her ghost has been seen on the anniversary of her execution, February 12th, always appearing as a young girl, always looking confused and frightened. Henry VI. Henry VI was imprisoned in the Wakefield Tower by his cousin, the future Edward IV, during the Wars of the Roses. He was murdered there in 1471, likely stabbed to death while at prayer. An eerie legend holds that Henry's ghost returns each year on the anniversary of his death. At around 11 p.m., his spectral form is said to appear, pacing solemnly through the Wakefield Tower. He apparently then fades slowly into the stone, vanishing until the next year's vigil. The Phantom Bear. This one is bizarre and terrifying. At least one living bear has prowled the Tower of London, a white bear given as a gift to Henry III for the royal menagerie in the 1200s. But according to Victorian accounts, the apparition of a fearsome bear is said to haunt the tower grounds. This phantom bear is allegedly so terrifying that it is responsible for the death of a soldier who collapsed after one encounter in the 19th century. The soldier saw the bear materialize in front of him. He lunged at it with his bayonet. The weapon went straight through. The bear reared up. The soldier, realizing what he was seeing, collapsed from shock. He died shortly after. The cylindrical apparition. This is perhaps the strangest haunting of all. A cylindrical figure, like a glass tube, seemingly about the thickness of my arm, hovering between the ceiling and the table. Its contents appeared to be a dense fluid, white and pale azure, like the gathering of a summer cloud and incessantly rolling and mingling within the cylinder. The witness watched as this bizarre floating tube of swirling mist moved slowly around the table where his family sat. It paused over his wife, then moved on and vanished. No explanation was ever found. Recent sightings. These aren't just historical accounts. Modern beefeaters continue to report experiences. One beefeater was home alone at the tower one evening when he suddenly heard his dog's squeaky toy being played with in another room. There was just one problem. His dog was away with his family that weekend. The beefeater checked the room and found the toy sitting exactly where it had been left. No one else was in the house. But as he turned to leave, he swore he heard one last little squeak. A particularly chilling encounter occurred near Traitor's Gate, the infamous entrance through which many doomed prisoners arrived at the tower. One early morning, a beefeater on sentry duty spotted a woman in full Tudor dress emerging from the mist. The sightings never stop. Year after year, decade
after decade.
So why is the Tower of London so profoundly, persistently haunted? Paranormal investigators have theories. Theory 1. Residual energy. Some believe that extreme emotions, terror, anguish, betrayal, can imprint themselves on a location, like a recording that plays over and over. The tower has witnessed almost unimaginable suffering. Guy Fawkes was taken to the Tower of London after his part in a plot to assassinate James I at Parliament in 1605. Imprisoned in the Queen's House, Guy Fawkes was subjected to intense torture, likely on the rack in the White Tower dungeons. Thousands were tortured, hundreds executed, countless prisoners died in despair. If residual energy theory is correct, the tower should be drenched in it. Theory 2. Unfinished business. Others believe ghosts are the spirits of those who died violently, unjustly, or with matters unresolved. Anne Boleyn was innocent of the charges against her. The princes were children who never had a chance to live. Lady Jane Grey was a teenage pawn. Perhaps they remain because justice was never served, because their stories ended too soon, because they have something left to say. Theory 3. Geographic factors. The tower sits on the north bank of the Thames. Water is often associated with paranormal activity. Some theorize it conducts spiritual energy. The tower is also built on ancient ground. Romans had a settlement here. Before that, there were Celtic communities. Layer upon layer of human history, layer upon layer of the dead. Theory 4. The power of belief. Skeptics argue that the tower is haunted because we expect it to be, that guards see ghosts because they're primed to see them, that shadows become Anne Boleyn because we want to see Anne Boleyn. There's truth to this. Human perception is fallible. We see patterns where none exist. We mistake the ordinary for the extraordinary. But here's what the skeptics can't fully explain. Why have dozens of guards, trained military personnel, not superstitious tourists, reported the same phenomena independently across centuries? Why did a soldier in 1864 describe Anne Boleyn's ghost in the same location and manner as a guard in the late 1800s, before they could have influenced each other? Why do children's ghost sightings cluster specifically in the White Tower and Bloody Tower, the locations most associated with the princes? Why do these sightings follow historical patterns? Why does Anne appear near Tower Green and the chapel? Why do the princes appear as children in nightgowns? The Tower of London has been studied by paranormal investigators for decades. Equipment has detected electromagnetic anomalies, temperature drops, electronic voice phenomena. But perhaps the most compelling evidence is simply this: the sheer consistency of the reports. Generation after generation, guard after guard, visitor after visitor, all describing the same ghosts in the same locations, behaving the same ways. That's either the most extraordinary mass delusion in history, or something is genuinely there. Today, the Tower of London is one of Britain's most visited tourist attractions. Nearly 3 million people walk through its gates every year. They come to see the crown jewels, to walk the walls, to learn about 1,000 years of history. But some leave with more than just photographs and memories. The tower still functions as a working palace, one of the few in the world. The Yeoman Warders live there with their families. Security guards patrol at night. Curators maintain the exhibits. And they all have stories. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, there's no denying that something or someone lingers within the Tower of London's ancient walls. The tower doesn't shy away from its haunted reputation, it embraces it. Ghost tours are offered, the beefeaters share their encounters, the history is taught alongside the hauntings. Because you can't separate the two. The ghosts are the history. Every stone in that fortress has witnessed something. Every corridor has heard screams. Every cell has held someone who was terrified or innocent or doomed. Anne Boleyn walks her chapel because she was buried there hastily, without ceremony, in an arrow chest. The princes drift through the White Tower because that's where they lived their final days, probably terrified, probably confused about why they'd been abandoned. Lady Jane Grey appears on the anniversary of her death because she was 16 years old and shouldn't have died at all. These aren't random hauntings, they're echoes of injustice, reminders of lives cut short, proof that some things, some tragedies, refuse to be forgotten. If you visit the Tower of London, pay attention. Watch for figures in Tudor dress. Listen for children laughing. Notice sudden cold spots in warm rooms. And if you see a woman in white walking toward the chapel, her head tucked under her arm, you'll know who she is.
This has been the Tower of London, the fortress of ghosts. If this journey into England's most haunted location fascinated you, please like and subscribe to Echoes of Darkness. Until then, remember, the past is never truly past. It echoes, it lingers, it watches. Stay vigilant.